Saturday, yeah. So this is our Saturday dinner.
I don't really want.
Right.
Have we got to eat all this?
No, just carry on.
Carry on eating.
We're not
Carry
going to
on.
fucking do that. So this is our Saturday dinner. I've just been joined by Diane. Diane is Julie's mum and Julie. And I've made some Sicilian-style bruschetta, Sicilian-style French beans and potato salad, and Sicilian-style cuttlefish with the breadcrumbs. Absolutely delicious. What is it like? What are you trying, bruschetta?
Very tasty, very tasty.
Have you tried this?
I have.
Okay.
I have, but I could try another.
Julie's nearly finished the bruschetta. So, if you'd like to see how I made it, just watch the video next. And the first thing I'll make is the Sicilian potato and French bean salad, but I want to just deal with the cuttlefish first, as I've defrosted them overnight, and if you look, there is quite a lot of water, so I will let them drain for the next 10 minutes whilst I make the salad, so that by the time I deal with them, they are as dry as they can be, as I do not want much water, if any, in this recipe. So I'll put this out of the way, and I'm going to show you, by the way, how they came. I bought them from a supermarket. You don't find them very often in the UK, and here they are. Look, they're called cuttlefish, and these are still frozen. I paid £7.99, and actually it's quite a good price. I don't know how much there is in there, 800 grams. So I think it's a very good option, far more affordable than buying squids, and the taste is very, very similar. So I'll put it back in the freezer and I'll get on with the salad. And as you might have already guessed, these French beans, they come from Julie's vegetable patch. She picked them yesterday, so they're really, really fresh. Also, she picked some the other day, and we blanched them and we put them in the freezer. So if you've got access to French beans, sometimes you might find them reduced in supermarkets, or this time of the year they are actually quite affordable depending where you buy them from. All you need to do if you want to keep some for winter, just do what I'm doing now. Remove the head and the bottom, or the bottom and the head, I don't think there is much difference, and put them in boiling hot water. At the moment I'm putting mine in cold water as I'm cooking them, and leave them to blanch for about no more than maybe 30-40 seconds. Then get them out and put them under running cold water under the tap, dry them, and spread them on a baking tray, put them in the freezer, and wait until about an hour maybe, until they are frozen solid, and then you can remove them from your baking tray and put them in your freezer and in a bag and so on, and they will last you throughout the winter. So cold water, I'll put them on the hob until they start boiling, then I'll turn the temperature on medium, and I'll leave them to cook for about 5 minutes until they are hard to bite. I don't want them to be too soft, but clearly they need to cook for about 5 minutes. In the meantime, I'll make the dressing. Oops, come back. I was actually looking for a medium clove of garlic, nearly lost it. So I'll peel it off. And I'm going to use a garlic crusher, as I want the garlic to spread all over my vegetables. Olive oil, I'm going to add about a couple of tablespoons equivalent. Vinegar next. Today I'm choosing red wine vinegar. Sometimes I use white wine vinegar, sometimes apple or cider vinegar, or very often you might have seen me using balsamic vinegar. I'm opting for red wine vinegar today because it's got a deeper taste and flavour. And bearing in mind that my beans and my potatoes are going to be quite sweet, this will balance it nicely. If I was to use, for example, what is it? I forget the name. The balsamic vinegar, it would be too sweet. White vinegar would also work very well. Followed by some black pepper, quantities to taste as always, and of course a little salt. No need to add too much. You can always add some more later if you wish. And this is parsley, which I've just picked from the garden, so I will add some of that, but I'm going to chop it with my knife so that releases even more flavour. French beans and potatoes is a very Sicilian combo, but if you want to make the recipe even more Sicilian, you can add some capers, but they're very salty, so I just rinse them under water. These are 1 teaspoon. And also a few olives, which I keep in olive oil. These are from my wonderful favourite jar. Actually, I refilled this last night, and I made a video a little while back. If you want to look at it, have a look here and you can see how I make them. And lastly, a few fresh tomatoes. These are also from our garden. Julia's just given them to me, and I'm using just the little ones. Today I will be cooking with a combination of supermarket tomatoes and our own. So these are our own, and they are really, really lovely. In the meantime, my French beans are beginning to boil, so I'll turn them down on number 4, 5 minutes from now. And my marinade is ready, and the garlic is already releasing some wonderful flavors. And they are done, and I've just drained them using a pasta drainer, and I'm going to share a little tip with you. A lot of people actually put them under cold running water by now because they want to cool down. I don't, and that is because I've got my beautiful marinade here, and I've got raw garlic and oil, and all of my ingredients are raw, and I like to add my marinade immediately on top of my very hot beans. And I find that as the beans are really hot, they fuse in very well with the garlic and the parsley, but also with the rest of the ingredients, and they will cool down very quickly anyhow. And here is the last ingredient, potatoes, and these are also from our garden, just like the French beans. Julie picked them yesterday, and she chopped them in little pieces and cooked them. Then she drained them, and they were in the fridge overnight, so they are stone cold. Ideal, because they will cool down my salad. Quantities of beans, quantities of potatoes, entirely up to you, of course, depending how many people you're cooking for and how hungry you are. But now that I've added the cold potatoes, I mix everything together once again, and these are nearly ready. All they need to do is to just cool down. And the best way to do that, of course, is to put them in the fridge. I've got a little rubber cover, which is also hermetic, so that will prevent any smell coming out. And they'll go in the fridge, and they will cool down relatively quickly because I've got a metal bowl. So if you've got one of those, ideal, as the heat will dissipate considerably quicker. And I'll get on with the fish next. Today I will be stuffing some of my cuttlefish, but also I will be cooking some in rings, a bit like calamari. And these are dry breadcrumbs, so I'm going to be adding 5 heaped dessert spoons, so a little bit more parsley. Actually, the ingredients are going to be very similar to the salad I just made, but obviously this will be cooked. I'm using parsley because it goes really well with this dish, but if you wish you can switch with mint or basil or even rosemary, but really difficult to beat parsley. So I mentioned very similar ingredients, and here are my capers. This time though, I'm not going to salt my mix, so I'm not going to drain my capers. In they go. And the reason why I've decided not to salt my filling is because I'm going to use quite a generous amount of Parmigiano Reggiano, which is Parmesan cheese, and this is quite salty. So I always say that you can add salt if you want at the end, but it's impossible to take it away. So quantity is entirely up to you, but I will be adding about 50 grams. And that's the cheese done. And next I'm going to be fishing another clove of garlic. This time I'm going for something a little bit larger. What did I do with my garlic crusher? Here it is. So this size, but you can skip it if you don't like garlic. Clearly, if you do like it, add it, but it is not that imperative that you add it as the recipe goes. So there it goes. Don't forget to open it and make sure that you fish all of the rest, as garlic crushers got this habit of retaining some of the garlic. But I do like to use crushers for ingredients and fillings like this, as it spreads considerably wider, and also the flavor is deeper. And here are my olives once again, black and green, or just black or just green, whatever you have. These are pitted, so it's considerably easier for me to cut them in half, but if you like you can use the unpitted ones. I've actually made this dish with unpitted olives before. Obviously be careful, make sure that you don't break any teeth, but I will chop them in half. And capers and olives in recipes like this are really important, by the way, as they do release quite a distinctive flavor, and they marry incredibly well with the fish, so be generous if you like olives. And I'm now halving my tomatoes. These are baby plum tomatoes from the supermarket. They need to be used up. I've had them in the fridge over a week. You can also use cherry tomatoes if you like. At the push, if you cannot access any fresh tomatoes, you can also use these tomatoes, the salad ones. By all means, use the tin tomatoes, but if you have to, make sure that you remove as much juice as possible, and try and use the plum tomatoes. And here is my last one, and just like I did before, I'm going to add some red wine vinegar. This time is because I've got it handy, but it could have been white. It doesn't really matter. Just a little though, not too much, about half a teaspoon. And I'll mix it all together so that the ingredients start marinating, and you can see that the breadcrumbs are really playing a key factor here as they're spreading nicely across all of my ingredients, and it smells and looks absolutely beautiful. Also should have added that I've seen many families in Sicily adding also a onion. They slice it in little pieces and it goes with the rest of the ingredients. You can do that if you like. I think there's plenty going on, and the more ingredients you put in, clearly the more the blend of the taste, but it will not harm if you like onions. Back to my cuttlefish. I'm looking for 6 which I can stuff easily without having to worry, and the reason why I'm saying that is because some of them are kind of damaged. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here is number 6. And I'm not stuffing them, but I'm avoiding picking up any tomatoes, as I want to make sure that they're properly compacted, and the tomatoes are a little bit big, and bear in mind they are quite small. I want to make the most of it. Of course, you can also use squid to do this, and they tend to be considered bigger. So if that was the case, by all means, just throw everything in, tomatoes included. But I'll just show you one so that you can see how easy it is. So get hold of some of the mix, make sure that you got a combination of olives and capers and breadcrumbs. And I'm pushing it down with my finger quite well, nice and compact, so that by the time it cooks, of course, the breadcrumbs will shrink, and you want to make sure that all of the stuffing stay inside. So be quite assertive with your finger so that it is nice and compact. And there it is, job done. So I'll do the other 3 and then I'll show you what I do with the rest. This is olive oil, and I'm applying a tiny little drop on each opening of my cuttlefish, just like this. Maybe a little bit less than that if you like. Don't worry if you're making a mess, because everything will be mixed together in a little while, but ensure that you do put a little olive oil, as this will generate a little crust, so that it's nice and crunchy by the time it's cooked, but also it'll prevent the stuff from coming out when it cooks. And of course you will have noticed that I haven't put any oil in my breadcrumbs yet, so this will filter down, and it will marinate the rest also. And I'm ready to add olive oil to my mixture now, and I'm going to be fairly generous. I want to make sure that the breadcrumbs are nice and moist. And I'm now dealing with the rest of my cuttlefish, a bit like calamari, and I'm slicing it in approximately 1 centimeter pieces, just like this. The rest of the body here, I'll chop this in half, as they're only small, and everything will cook broadly at the same time. And very simply, I'll add them to my mixture over here, and the cuttlefish will marinate beautifully with my other ingredients, but I'm also going to add these to the rest so that they benefit of some additional coating of breadcrumbs. And they're nearly ready to go in the oven. All I need is just my oven tray, which is over there. And I would recommend that you line it up with some baking paper, or in my case I'm using this reusable paper, which is great for the environment, and also you can actually put it in the dishwasher. So here is my cuttlefish, in it goes. And to ensure that everything cooks evenly, I'm spreading all of the loose cuttlefish and tomatoes over there, and I'll place the whole ones here so that they can easily cook amongst everything else. And they're ready to go in the oven. Temperature about 190 degrees. It doesn't really matter if it's fan assisted or normal conventional one for this particular dish, but do keep an eye on them. Timing wise, about 20 to 25 minutes. A lot depends by the size of your fish. Clearly the vegetables will cook in that time, so if you're cooking a very large cuttlefish or indeed large squids, you might need to cook them for a little bit longer, but you will know that by checking. So I'll go and put this in the oven, and I'll start on my bruschetta next. And let's start with the bread. So what bread is best to use to make bruschetta? In all fairness, you can use any bread, French stick, sliced bread, it doesn't really matter. Clearly the more rustic is your bread, the more rustic the look of the bruschetta will be. But I'm going to show you a little trick which kind of equalizes almost every bread. So I'm using some sourdough today. Both Julie and I went to the supermarket shopping yesterday. We saw this loaf of sourdough bread and we both fell in love with it. So I'm using sourdough. First thing, if you're using normal loaf bread like this, I would advise actually that you slice your bruschetta bread in diagonally. So this will give you a greater surface, and it will look more elegant on the plate. And I always make sure that if I'm slicing it, that I do about 1.5 centimeter slices, something like this. Here, I'll show you on this camera. And this bruschetta style will complement the fish and the potato and the bean salad absolutely beautifully. And any leftover bread, always put it back in the original packaging, and then it'll go in the freezer so it stays fresh. Now I talked about an equalizer process, so I'll show you what I do. This is a little olive oil, a new clean bowl. I will be using this later also, and some oregano, so I'm going to put a good pinch, and I'll mix it with a little brush, and I'll start brushing the olive oil and the oregano on the surface of my bread, each side like this. And the reason why I call it an equalizer system is because the flavor from the oregano and the olive oil, once this goes in the oven, it can also really help any type of bread to taste absolutely beautiful. So, as I said, you don't have to spend an arm and a leg in special bread to make this. Any bread will be fine. And here is my last one. So I've got another baking tray over here. I'll position them inside it just like this. And as my oven is on already, I'll make most of it, and I'll pop them in for about 5 minutes until they've become beautiful and golden in color, and then I'll come back. And my jar of olives comes out once again, so I'm going to use a couple of dessert spoons. But this will be going on top of my bruschetta. I'm chopping them in half so that they do not roll around and I'll end up with them on the floor. Fresh basil, I've just washed a little branch here. I've got a beautiful plant, so it can go in. I should have actually chopped it with a knife first, so I can do that now. You'll have noticed that I'm using exactly the same bowl I used with the oregano, so I'll top up with a little olive oil now. My capers come out once again. So you can see that the ingredients used throughout these 3 different recipes are kind of very similar, but I will only use a few, not even a full teaspoon. And again, I haven't rinsed them, so I'm not going to add any salt to my mix here. And that is because I'm adding a little Parmesan cheese once again. I will also be adding a little bit more at the end once the whole thing comes out of the oven. No salt, but a little pepper. Yes, please. This time I'm going to use some balsamic vinegar, so in it goes. Quantity is about 1 to 2 teaspoons, something like this. And lastly, another medium sized clove of garlic, which yet again I will be slicing using my crusher. And this is ready. I'll give it a quick mix. I put it on one side and I'll start slicing my tomatoes. 6 bruschetta slices, so I want 12 pieces of tomatoes, so that I can put at the very least a cup on each piece. Next is mozzarella. So I'll go a fresh ball of mozzarella. This weighs 125 grams, and I'll slice it very, very thinly, as again I want to make sure that I get enough mozzarella for each slice of bread. Okay, so 5 minutes have gone by. I'll go and get the bread and show you what I'll do next. And my bread is well bruscato. Bruscato is from bruscare. Bruschetta is clearly the name of the bread. And what bruscare means is to make it rough. So this is being bruscato because it's roughened up. A little Italian for you there. I'm doing this whilst my bread is hot because I'm cooking dinner now, but if you wanted to, you can actually get your bread ready well in advance, so even the day before, and you can do this when the bread is cold, because it'll go back in the oven anyway. And some people start with the mozzarella first, and then they do the tomato, and then they do the olives. Some people start with the olives, and then the mozzarella, and then the tomato. I don't think it really matters. The most important thing is that all of the ingredients are there, and I'm starting with the tomatoes and followed by the mozzarella. I'm kind of following a similar principle as if you were making a pizza. And when you make a pizza, you always start with tomatoes as a base, and then the mozzarella. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now. So tomato and mozzarella, followed by the rest. So my olives mixed with my basil and cheese goes on. And this should have cooled down, yep, and they're ready to go back in the oven. About 5 to 6 minutes, not too long, because clearly the bread is already cooked, enough for the cheese to melt, and they will be ready. And by the time I'll come back, I'll bring the fish with me, and Julie and her mum will be joining me so that we can test everything together. So see you in about 10 minutes maybe. They're busy gassing on the telephone with Julie's sister at the moment, so I'll call them when I'm ready. But I just wanted to show you what they look like straight out of the oven. And I was thinking to add a little bit more Parmesan cheese on top of my bruschetta, but I don't think I'll bother actually, because they look beautiful as they are. But I will add a little bit of pepper just to give it a little colour. And the smell coming from the fish is absolutely amazing. Here is a spatula. Let's have a look. Look at these, they're absolutely perfect. So I'll dish them up and I'll go and call them.
Let's try
This
that
looks
one.
delicious.
Oh, that is nice.
Okay, and I'll try some of the salad. How about the bruschetta?
That's yummy.
Oh, that is
Hang on.
delicious.
Let me go for.
You want to try the bruschetta?
I will do.
Bruschetta, Diane?
Thank you.
Look at your false teeth.
Need good teeth, yeah.
And I think it's fair to say that they're tucking in and they're really enjoying it. What do you think?
Well, very tasty. This
And
is
what about
lovely.
you? Yeah? Okay. We're going to eat
No
now.
complaints.
No complaints. We're going in the garden to eat. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. You don't have to make them all. You can make one, you can make two, or you can make them all. If I was you, I would make them all.
Arrivederci.
Grazie.
E buon appetito. Ciao ciao.